Hey guys, and welcome back to NTom and Volk's Spot of PC. Today we're taking a look at one of Volk's fave games ever. This is Diablo II, developed by Blizzard North and published by Blizzard Entertainment and Sierra Entertainment in June of 2000, and it came to Macintosh in July, so I don't know if you run a Mac, sorry about the delays, I guess. This is an action role-playing hack and slash kind of game, and it can be played in single player or multiplayer, and that is basically the extent of my involvement with the Diablo series, reading off a Wikipedia article. So over to you, Volk. Teach me about the game.
Alrighty then, so obviously you gotta pick your character first of all, because you cannot defeat the denizens of Diablo with nothing. So you got a choice between 7 classes: the Amazon, the Assassin, the Necromancer, the Barbarian, the Paladin, the Sorceress, and the Druid. And it's worth noting that the Assassin and the Druid were included in the game's expansion, Lords of Destruction, which was released in 2001, I believe.
So why exactly are we going with the expansion here? Is there anything specific you wanted to show off?
Not exactly. It's more like it's a more complete package. You get more items, there's an extra chapter. But it was more just to show off the game in its entirety more than anything else, and seeing how it might influence the beginning of the game, as well as adding that extra bit at the end.
Okay, right. So I've heard of like Diablo throughout the course of my gaming life. I would say career, but that's kind of sad. And I've never really been that into it, so teach me a little bit about Diablo itself before we get into the meat and potatoes of 2.
Well, I can start off with a bit of plot. Diablo 2 actually takes place after the previous game, where an unnamed hero defeated Diablo, the Lord of Terror, who's basically a huge primeval demon.
Okay.
And he attempted to contain its essence inside his own body. Now, you can imagine how that probably went. Since then, the unnamed hero has become corrupted by the demon spirit, and is causing demons to enter the world everywhere he goes. And obviously the demons aren't exactly the friendly sort, and they just wreak havoc wherever they appear.
Yeah, I can't think of many friendly demons just off the top of my head. I mean, there's Cthulhu, but he's more like he's an old one, really. I'm not sure if he's in the same category as demons.
Not entirely, it's more like an old god, and gods and demons are slightly different.
Old Testament god, ugh, the worst.
But yeah, your hero currently is trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. He kind of hears the rumours of a dark wanderer causing demons to appear, and your character kind of progresses through the story, and you learn more about who the dark wanderer is, at the same time bashing lesser demons who have also appeared within the world.
We've been kind of kicking about the idea of covering one of the Diablo games since, like, even before NTom and Volk's Spot of PC was a thing. In fact, I think we were discussing it back when it was called NTom and Volk's Cup of Tea and PC, which I eventually found to be too wordy and just kind of cut it down to Spot of PC. So, what is it about the game that appeals to you? What is it about the series that made you want to cover it on this show?
Well, it's one of the most definitive action RPGs that I can think of. I mean, Diablo 2 was one of the most popular games in the year 2000, probably without question. And I just love the idea of kind of just going around, beating the snot out of several groups of enemy demons, getting loot, getting more and more powerful and defeating more and more things. It's kind of one of those revolving balls of magpie tendencies versus being insanely powerful and wrecking everything.
Magpie tendencies, I totally relate to you on that one, mate. But it's funny, you say action RPG. When I think of that, I think of more third-person stuff, like, say, Kingdom Hearts and so on. This, to me, looks a bit more like an MMO, so what's up with that?
Well, it can kind of play like an MMO, because Diablo 2 was designed with the intent of having people go online and either helping each other out against the environment or competing against each other in player versus player. But, I mean, action RPGs can be broader than just the name itself. Like, this one's more of a hack and slash with an isometric view, which works incredibly well for this game. And this actually wasn't the first games like this I ended up playing, and even though I never really played Diablo 2 until quite recently, I played a very, very similar game which was an MMO called The Legend of Mir, which I think was either a Korean or Chinese MMO from the mid-1990s or something like that. And it was actually one of the games I managed to get my dad into somehow. And my dad was so good at that game, he literally bypassed me and became one of the most powerful dudes on whatever server it was he was on.
Nice. It is Volk's dad approved, The Legend of Mir.
Yeah, but I recently got into the Diablo series, starting with Diablo 3 actually. And after playing Diablo 3 for a bit, I got to thinking, I wonder what the previous games were like. So I toyed with the idea of maybe playing a bit of Diablo 2 and covering it on Spot of PC, which is what we're doing. And I actually really, really enjoyed this. Now, one thing that appealed to me about Diablo 3 was that it was relatively easy to get into, and of course, it looks a bit shinier, there's a lot of variety in items and skills and things like that. But with this game, it's kind of more core, and it's a lot more challenging. So, if you die in Diablo 3, for instance, basically you can respawn after a few seconds exactly where you were and get straight back into the action. With Diablo 2, death has a lot more consequence, and if you die, even if you're not playing on a hardcore character, you will still lose pretty much all of your items and you'll take a bit of a gold hit. And on higher difficulties, you can even lose experience points for dying. So you're kind of more motivated to survive rather than, just equipping some of the most powerful things you can find and being a quote-unquote glass cannon. So there's a lot more thought involved with how you manage your character, I think.
Can I just say, I'm like totally shallow for saying this, I think, but I think what appeals to me most about the game so far isn't the gameplay, it's the visual style. Like, just the almost gothic sort of stylings they've got for the UI is really appealing.
Yeah, Diablo has the whole styling thing down to a T. It's a good mix of sort of horror and all that sort of thing, gothic as you said as well, and the game itself is really, really well designed from an artistic standpoint. And I think that's probably one of the main reasons why it was as successful as it was, because back then, I don't think there was really anything that could compete with what Diablo was doing. So the idea of the game is just, as you're going through, you find more items, you get more levels, you get gradually more and more powerful. As you level up, you get more spells, like right here, I think I reached about level 4 or 5, and as you may notice, I've gone from having one skeleton to a small entourage of skeletons.
A skeleton crew. Nice, skeleton warriors. Da-da-da-da.
You can actually get literal armies with the necromancer. One of his deals is that he can make him so he's a summoning powerhouse, so he'll be able to summon skeleton warriors and mages and bring out golems and throw them into the mix as well. But he's also pretty proficient at cursing people as well.
Well,
so
you'd hope
if that's
so.
more your game style, you can just literally lay down a bunch of curses on the enemies, weaken them, and let somebody else go in and do all the heavy lifting.
Well, don't forget Sauron was known as the necromancer before he fully, revealed himself and came to power.
I wonder if he went through this whole situation.
Yeah, he'd probably roll a necromancer if he ever played Diablo 2. But what exactly are we showing off in regards to the game here? Because I've noticed a cut already.
We're basically going through the first few missions. So the game is split into several acts, and within those acts there's a collection of quests that you can do before you advance to the next one. And one of the nice things about Diablo 2 in particular is that you can actually do the quests out of order and even skip some of them entirely, but it makes a neat guide to be able to get as much of the story as you possibly can, or maybe get a handy item or an unlock that you might be able to use to improve your chances of surviving, basically.
I like how you take down enemies that aren't even, being aggressive towards you. Like that guy back there, not the humongous beast, the twiddly-looking thing.
Oh, for zombies?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well I mean the zombies will bite you in the shins given half a chance, but it does take them a while to get there. But yeah, another thing to note is as you progress, you will find tougher enemies, like even in the first chapter. You'll have these shamans who, if you don't immediately go for those guys first, they'll keep resurrecting the dudes you just killed. So there's a little bit of strategy that gets introduced right from the bat, and it only gets further developed from there. Like, eventually you might find enemies that are immune to a specific attack element. So if you're specialized into electric, and you have someone that's electric enchanted, or even electric immune, you kind of need to rethink your game plan, or you may have to try and find your way around it. So there's a lot of strategy involved within the game as well, and it's a little bit deceptive because most people sort of see these games and they just think, oh, it's just one of these games where you just run around and just beat enemies mindlessly. Well, it really isn't. I mean, especially in Diablo 2's case, I feel.
I'm really digging, stats, obviously. I love numbers and lists and stuff like that, but the way the map overlays on the screen, I think, is very convenient, and it takes away a lot of the mess that you usually tend to get from games like this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing I do like about the game is that the minimap is very, very easy to see. You can bring it up, and even though there's still the game in the background, everything is still very, very clearly marked. And I really, really dig that, because otherwise you could just end up with a map that you can barely see and make sense of, and it could be horrible for the sense of navigation, because there's a lot of wide open areas here, and the caves can have various dead ends or roundabouts and things like that, and you really don't want to be getting lost in those situations. It's just wandering around aimlessly, not really sure what to do.
I will admit I'm kind of feeling a tad out of my depth here, because this is really one of the games or series that I did not get into as a kid. So forgive me if I do sound a little bit like a pleb as we go through this particular episode of Spot of PC, but you know, it's nothing out of the norm for me, I suppose. I've been meaning to ask, what are the red orbs and the blue orbs on screen right now?
You mean on the left and right?
Uh-huh.
Alright, well, the left orb is your health, and obviously if that goes down to 0, you are ground red.
Blue is mana.
Yeah, blue's your mana, but some other characters have different resources as well, like they may have a stamina bar or something like that.
Yeah.
But there is also your energy, which you use to run around the map. And if you get exhausted, then you can't run and you sort of reduce to a sort of brisk walking pace.
Yeah, that's the mustard-looking bar on the bottom, I guess.
Yep, that is correct. And you can actually improve your stamina by increasing your energy, and that'll allow you to run further without having to stop. And you can even get stamina potions, which gives you infinite running for a set period of time. And they stack as well, so you can like purchase multiples, drink them all, and have a good 10-15 minutes of solid sprinting speed.
So what we after here, mate, apart from murdering people?
Well, we had to cleanse the Den of Evil for this Missy here, and restore her faith in humanity, apparently. But she gives us a reward to train a skill up, which is quite handy because obviously leveling up your skills makes them more powerful. So in this case we are leveling it into Teeth, which is our primary projectile attack, and the more we level it up, the more damage it does, and the more projectiles we get at a time. So very, very handy for if you want to get stuck in the back lines whilst your skeletons do all the beating down.
Yeah, I would send an army of skeletons to do the commentary for me, honestly.
The skeletons do actually change in look as you level them up as well, like they gain more armor and their weapons get better, and they generally look more grisly, so they may upgrade their scythes to broadsword and be like in full plate mail by the time you max out the skill.
I want them to look like the Stalfosses from Skyward Sword by the end, the guys with 4 swords. They're pretty boss.
I'm not sure if you get 4 swords, but I imagine you'll probably get something similar by the end. So now we find out about one of the lesser demons walking around the place, Andariel. And our job for this chapter is to try and find her and stop her, because obviously she's doing mean things like raising the dead and terrorizing the nation.
Mean things like terrorizing the innocent populace, how dare she?
And not paying her taxes. So we cut forward a bit because there was a lot of walking around to get to this point.
Oh.
Like, one of the main things about games like this is that you're not necessarily tied down to a specific way of doing things. It's like I said, some of the quests in this game are entirely optional, and you're kind of free just to wander around, explore, and just see what's what. And that's one of like the main draws to this game, is that you can sort of wander around and find a tower, and you've just thought, I'm not really doing anything right now, I'm compelled to see what's in this tower. And you may find a special boss, some specific loot, so it's always worth sort of going off the beaten path and sort of finding all these little nooks and crannies and just seeing what you can get and power up your character.
This actually kind of reminds me a lot, and I'm just going from like aesthetic point of view here, the Ultima series.
Yeah, that does a little bit. I don't really have much experience with Ultima, honestly, but that comparison has been made by at least a few people around the world. So now we're trying to find one of the people that Andariel resurrected, who is apparently a very proficient rogue warrior called Bloodraven. And apparently she is very, very mean, and is also taking part in this whole resurrecting the dead nonsense.
Oh, if you're like Dr. Seuss trying to write the Diablo lore.
Oh, I can only imagine how that will go, but I'm not nearly creative enough to come up with something on the fly.
Man, I notice you have a lot of mana potions. You tend to favour that style?
Yeah, I mean, if you're spamming spells as much as I am, having enough mana potions so you can continue doing it is oftentimes very much recommended. You don't want to be caught without any mana and just sort of battering people to death with your wand.
Yeah, it makes sense, because I can't picture a necromancer going for melee attacks all the time.
Well, I mean, I did towards the beginning, but that was only because I kind of had my skeleton army helping out here.
Yeah.
I mean, beating people with my wand is just part of the whole procedure until I can properly learn my spells.
Man, she's just running all over the place.
Yeah, she is pretty quick on her feet. So you can only get like a couple of rounds of projectile spamming before she kind of runs off and gets a better vantage point.
I know the name, like, well, the title beneath people's names is just their, like, class designation or whatever, but Blood Raven Demon is, like, the most edgiest thing I've heard all week.
It's true, and you get some really, really interesting ones later on down the line as well. I think there are some more comedic ones as well thrown in there. One thing Blizzard likes to do is not take itself too seriously.
Whoa, did you just unleash the quickening?
It does seem like that, but no, that's just the spirits of the dead being released back into the world.
Sleep, little zombos, sleep and dream of flesh.
Well, maybe not that. So there we go, we vanquished Blood Raven, so now we're going to tell Thingamajig here the good news, I forget her name. And as a reward, she actually gives us a follower that will help us out. You know, now we've got skeletons and some random person to help us out. So
I love the portrait of the skeleton.
It's like, ha! I'm in the game too!
Like, the person on the left is, are you seeing this shit? Like, we've literally got an animated skeleton walking with us.
This is like, are you sure you should be on our team? And the skeleton's like, I don't care, mate, I don't give a fuck.
Oh, go Basanti! Fire arrows!
Oh yeah. You can get loads of different followers, so you can kind of check your way through a list, see what appeals most to you, and go from there. Hopefully she won't die within a few minutes, but that's kind of up to you to take care of her.
Well, you know, if she does, she can just turn her into another one of your skeleton warriors.
No, that's true, that's true. Alright, so the next part of our quest is to find the legendary Horodrim sage Deckard Cain himself. A name that is very much poster child of the Diablo series. Just an old man who knows a ton of shit about demons, and every time I play a new season of Diablo 3, I always devolve into doing monster lore in my hilariously bad Deckard Cain impression, and it never gets old.
Well, we'll see if it's accurate once we get to the old guy.
Yep, that is true, that is true. One other thing to note is that you will occasionally run into champion or elite monsters, which have a unique name and have unique abilities too, like this one is extra strong and extra fast. So obviously this thing is going to hit you for tons of damage, and will also chase after you with the rate of a blue hedgehog.
At least you can hit it, unlike the super overleveled unique monsters in Xenoblade Chronicles.
And also these guys, as well as giving you a ton more experience, is that they also drop some very, very nice loot for you. And this is where I can talk a little bit about loot management. You have to really, really keep an eye on what you're picking up, because you do fill up pretty damn quickly. So you kind of have to work out exactly how things tessellate and seeing what you can fit in your bag and when. Sometimes you do have to go back to town, sell some stuff, and then come back, but I was very, very, very determined to kind of cram as much in there as possible without interrupting the gameplay flow.
It's like the precursor to the attaché case in Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, exactly. And in Diablo 3 they do actually streamline this a little bit more, so there's less like obscenely huge items. They're usually either a 1x1 or a 2x or 1x2 item, whereas this one you can get like 2x8.
Nice.
Or 2x4 rather, and it's kind of crazy trying to sort of manage all that, but that's like part of the game's gameplay, I guess. Just micromanaging your inventory properly and just managing yourself as well.
I mean, that is a very RPG kind of trope, but it also lends itself to the MMO genre.
So we found a scroll which will take us over to this little section here, where we gotta press the stones in the correct order. Now this confused me at first, because I was sort of trying to align it with sort of like how the diagram looks, because you see, notice the one on the screen is flipped completely over to what's on the scroll here. It took me a little bit, but I later noticed there are actually symbols on them as well, and that you just press the symbols in the order that they are shown.
Okay.
It was one of the minor snags I hit on my journey. But if you think about it a little bit, it'll all make sense.
You gotta get it right eventually, folks.
It's just me going, what the fuck? Do I have to, like, flip it over this way? Like, where's the first one? And I was like, ah, there it is, okay. Now I consult my thing again, I'm like, okay, so if one's there, then 2 would be here, and it'll be like, oh, there's symbols on there, this all makes sense now. So we are now opening the portal to Tristram, which was where the first Diablo game kind of took place.
Are you sure you can handle what's going to happen? I'm seeing a pentagram on that thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's standard fare in Diablo, you know, opening portals to demon worlds and killing zombies and demons in alternate dimensions. You know, it's all standard fare. So this is apparently where Deckard Cain is either hiding or locked up or something, so...
Oh, I would hope he's hiding, because the whole place is on fire.
And there he is! He's trapped in a cage! And there we go, he just opens a portal. It just makes me wonder why he didn't just do that whilst he was in the cage, but I guess he was too weak to do so.
It was an anti-magic cage, one of those.
And also you may have noticed that since a couple of cuts, we've also gained the employ of a golem.
Nice.
Which is very, very tanky and is very, very good at sponging up hits.
Golems come from Jewish law. There you go.
And also, we can now explode corpses, which is great for taking out groups of enemies.
Exploding corpses, otherwise known as blowing people up, Volk.
Well, we have to wait for them to die first.
Oh,
you know.
okay. What a very specific spell.
Well, you gotta, I mean, if they're alive, you gotta ask their permission, and usually they're not too fond of the idea. If they're dead, then, you know, they can't argue against it, so blow up away.
Yeah, I'd be careful. You could have a zombie rights management group coming after you soon.
Oh, we don't want that. We don't want that at all.
They always want their pound of flesh, but tush.
Zombie unions are very complicated.
Good evening.
So here we go. The legend himself is going to basically tell us the events of the previous game, and he's also going to help us identify items for free, which is very, very handy. All you have to do is press one button, all the items you find are immediately identified, which is very much better than constantly clicking on a scroll of identify, and then clicking on it, and then buying another scroll. So it saves you money as well, which is great.
As you know, some time ago, Diablo was slain beneath Tristram.
Which sounds a little bit like... Oh, what the fuck is his name? Sean Connery. There we go.
A very old Sean Connery, who tells us about the demons who inhabit the 7 hells.
I'm not Spanish, I'm Egyptian.
I'm not sure what nationality Deckard Cain is, I just call him the old man. He fills the trope very, very nicely. Just the voice, even to this day, is still perfect.
The ordeal had been so disturbing that he simply could not put it out of his mind.
I can't unhear Sean Connery, man, Jesus.
Well, if there's ever a live-action Diablo movie, if Warcraft does well, you know, Sean Connery as Deckard Cain might be a good casting choice.
Something about the East.
Oh no, not the East. How very generalized.
Tristram was attacked by legions of foul.
Oh, it was a cursed cage, that's why he couldn't teleport out.
Demons left
They thought of everything.
to die in that cursed cage. I believe now that Tristram's hero.
So yeah, this tells you that he believes that the person who killed Diablo is this dark wanderer as well, so you get that first connection, and you get more and more as you progress through the games, and either things start to make sense, or you meet up with him at some point, and then perhaps eventually you have to kill him.
Never before. You must stop him, or all will be lost.
Those are some high stakes, better make sure that doesn't happen, but in the meantime, I think I'm going to do some exploring. So this is going to be just sort of wandering around, sort of thinking what the next quest is, where, hello, there's this mysterious tower here. And that's where I go to explore.
Nice.
And this sort of introduces one of the other forms of dungeons, which are pretty much buildings. And they usually have multiple floors, they can contain unique bosses and things like that, so they're always, always worth exploring. And of course there is always loot aplenty, so if that's not reason enough, I don't know what is, quite frankly.
What's the best loot you just randomly come across during your time in Diablo 2?
Well, actually there was an item that got made for me by a blacksmith, which was essentially a shriveled up zombie head with so many stats it almost went past the actual viewing screen of the game. And that's probably the best item that I've had procured for me, although I have found set items, which, as well as finding rare and unique items, you can also find items that make up part of the set, and if you manage to gather them all together, then you get unique set bonuses which power you up even further. So there's lots and lots and lots of loot to find. Some might even have specific prefixes that help you out in some way. Like, it will greatly boost your summoning capabilities, or it might make it so your fireballs are, like, the size of a universe.
I can't carry anymore.
I've been having a little thinky poo, and a thought occurs to me. Is there any way to basically change the difficulty on the fly? Like, say, if you're having a really hard time, you can tone it down a notch. Or if you're feeling really confident in your necromancy skills, or whatever, you can go even further beyond and, like, up it a bit.
Nice DBZ reference there.
Thank you.
Yes, you can, but you have to complete the game first.
Oh.
You start off on normal difficulty, and you go through the game as your character. Then, after you beat the game once, you have the option to turn it up into Nightmare difficulty. And basically, you start the game over, all the mobs are stronger, there's heavier penalties on death, and your resistances take a bit of a handicap. Then, if you happen to beat it on Nightmare, you can crack it up even further and go onto Hell mode. And that increases the strength of mobs and your handicaps and penalties for death even further. So, there are difficulty levels in the game, but you kind of have to complete the first one in order to progress onto the next one.
See, I've never really been a fan of that, and I think it's where Zelda kind of suffers a little bit. Like, when it got first introduced, Hero Mode was kind of like a post-game thing. And I think, don't quote me on this, I think games like A Link Between Worlds, like you have it from the start, I might be thinking of Wind Waker HD, or maybe I'm just wrong on all counts. But if you want a harder difficulty selection, it should be there from the start. I mean, like, when you start the new game on the higher difficulty, do you get to have a New Game Plus kind of thing with all your attributes and whatnot retained?
Yeah, exactly. When you start a new game on a higher difficulty, you literally keep your character as it was when you completed the game and chose to advance to the next difficulty. So
See, that's fair, I think, yeah.
it's basically just a natural progression rather than just going, okay, let's just try it on a higher difficulty next and see what happens. It's more, okay, let's crank it up a notch and see if I can get any further progress. But Diablo 3 tackles it a little bit differently, where you can actually tweak difficulty on the fly a lot like you described. So if you're going through the game and it's a bit more easy, you can tweak up the difficulty and you get like bonus experience and things like that. Or if it's a bit too hard or maybe you're a bit out of your depth, you can actually dial it down as well. So they did actually improve on that in the next Diablo game.
Nice, nice. So, we've discussed classes, we've discussed mobs, we've discussed aesthetics, we've discussed the very demons of hell. Now I come to the most important thing, something you were kind of whispering in my ear before we started. What is the deal with Diablo and cows?
There is no cow level. But to be absolutely serious, there is absolutely no cow level that is unlocked by transmuting a portal using a peg leg and a Horodric cube. And yeah, that is how you unlock the cow level. After you complete the game, you find a item called Wirt's Peg Leg, and you transmute that in your cube with a Scroll of Town portal, and that unlocks the cow level.
Nice.
And the cow level thing, it started off as a running joke from the original Diablo game, and was spawned from an internet rumor that cows just appear in the game without any reason, and if you click on it a several amount of times, a secret portal apparently opens. So they kind of kept it as a running joke, just like including cows with spears and all that sort of thing, and of course, including cow levels in each emanation of Diablo. So Diablo 3 has its own version of the cow level as well, and there's even a special cow Nephilim rift, which is like a randomly generated dungeon, which is just literally a rift filled with cows across multiple floors.
Nice. Isn't there a realm of, like, eternal sunshine and sparkles as well?
Yeah, at least in Diablo 3. I don't know about Diablo 2, but there is a place of sunshine and rainbows called Whimsyshire, which is filled with unicorns, teddy bears, and sunflowers, and is the most pleasant place in the world.
Well, we're far away from Whimsyshire right now, I believe.
We're not in Kansas anymore.
So we're coming to the end of this. Why did you choose Diablo 2 to show off instead of, like, 1 or 3?
Well, Diablo 2 is considered the most definitive Diablo experience by a lot of people, and it's where it got really, really, really popular. Diablo 3 obviously is a game I'm perhaps more closer to home to. I put in nearly 900 hours into that game, so you could say I'm a fair bit experienced, but the problem is that Diablo 3 has its own unique history and experience to it, and it's not really something that you can cover within one game or the other. Same goes for Diablo 2, so they kind of command their own individual videos to do. So maybe later down the line I'll cover Diablo 3 and I can use my expertise on that to kind of shed some light on the Diablo lore and history of the game.
Yeah, and I will just sit there wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, eager and ready to learn while you do most of the talking and I do most of the editing.
It is fine, the dynamic works. That's all
Such
that
is the
matters.
way of things. So, how are we going to close out this here Spot of PC episode?
Well, I am going to show off how I died, which was against the first boss of the act.
Oh, Jesus. Well, this is how my story ends.
Yep, and getting killed by Andariel. And yeah, that's how my particular story ends, but it's still available, so maybe yours will go slightly better.
Is it on the good old games?
No, it's actually available on Blizzard. £7 for the base game and £7 for the expansion.
Well, there you go. See you next time, folks.